ever since I've been promoted to Lance Corporal, right, I've been asking to go on the boats course, for the rigid raiders and combat support boats. I wanted to be a boat operator. And we came back from that tour, got back to Paderborn, and straight away they went, "Oh, you're going on the boats course." Okay. Why? Not that I'm complaining, but this is the first year I've asked for about 4 years. I've not asked for it this year yet, and you're putting me on it. Oh, yeah, it's because you're going straight back out to Iraq.
Oh, really?
To do boat troop.
Right.
I was like, okay, all right then. So that was straight back out to Chatham, do the boats course. In fact, the first part of the boats course is down in Marchwood in Southampton.
Okay, yeah.
Where you do all the theory,
learn
about the rules of the road, and learn how to navigate using the charts and all that sort of stuff. And then you go to Chatham and you do your rigid raider course, and then after that you do combat support boat course, right? Literally finished that course, drove back over to Paderborn, had a week off, and then straight back out to Iraq again.
Right.
Based at Basra Palace this time.
Okay.
And so that was doing patrols in rigid raiders up and down the Shatt al-Arab.
Yeah.
And if people are familiar with the geography there, that part borders Iran. Right, so the border with Iraq and Iran literally goes straight down, bang centre of the river from south of the palace. So you go out on patrol down there and you see like Iranians in watchtowers and stuff and that watching you and stuff like that. But and there was some people kidnapped, wasn't there, by the Iranians afterwards. This was after our tour. But it was a tour straight after us, so we knew them.
Right.
But they'd literally turned out of Basra Palace, turned right, gone south on a patrol. Got a little bit mixed up down there in the weeds because it gets very marshy down there. Very long grass and stuff like that. Quite easy, little offcuts here and there. Quite easy to get lost. They got lost. The Iranians picked them up, I think. So we was always quite careful of that. Make sure you know exactly where you are and stuff. So, quite enjoyed that. Who doesn't enjoy blitzing up and down a river and a speedboat at 32 knots?
I've got a weird fact that's popped into my head about that.
Then.
Do I remember it correct? Am I remembering it correctly? Where it can stop? It can stop in its own length.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. From 32 knots.
From 32 knots, it can. Yeah. It's not the longest of boats, so it's quite a short.
8.5 meters.
8.5 meters.
9 meters.
So the fact it can stop from that in 8 meters is mental.
It can also do a J turn in its own boat length.
Oh, as well.
Yeah. So you can stop and turn and be facing the opposite direction in its own boat length.
Wow.
So yeah, used to love throwing people around in those because they're twin jet. So you basically got the controls are very simple. So you've got the steering wheel for direction. You've got a throttle for each engine. So you've got 2 throttles for the engine, so you can set the throttles. And then you've got the bucket controls, which puts the buckets up and down, right? So if they're in the down position, the boat's reversing. If they're in the up position, the boat's going forwards and everything in between, right? But yeah, if you're going at full speed and then you put the bucket controls into full reverse, it just pivots and stops.
Yeah.
Stops in its own boat length, which is, really impressive. But
it is.
It's basically a small tugboat. Right, so it's for what they're originally for was for supporting 2.8 amphibious, right, for pushing the pontoon bridges around or towing them into position and stuff, right? Or if they got into trouble, towing them back out of trouble and stuff like that, right? So that's what they're really designed for. But out there, we used them for rebuilding the pontoon bridges that cross the river at various places. There's about three. I think there's about three pontoon bridges up and down the river that we had to keep a close eye on because the what do they call them? The so when it started getting a little bit hairy out in Iraq, you know, they used to start cutting like old ships and stuff like that to float downriver to try and take these bridges out.
Right. Okay.
You know, so we had to keep a close eye on that. So the amount of times we get a call out and we'd have to dash up the river in the middle of the night and stop this old knackered tugboat from drifting into this pontoon because that's where the main supply routes would cross. You know, yeah, we did quite a lot of those. And there was this floating crane up there between the palace and where the hotel was. Big, massive floating crane, right? Always used to get cut loose to try and take out these bridges. The amount of times I've pushed that around and back into the side. I lost count. But it was quite a good fun tour. Really enjoyed that tour.
What year was that?
That was 2003 to 2004. So over the winter.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, so that was quite good. But always knew when the SAS used to use our boats quite a lot for patrols and stuff like that. So we gave them a little bit of training and stuff. You know, showed them how to use them properly and all this sort of thing. And then they would go out, borrow a couple of boats and go out and do their thing, right? But you always knew roughly where they'd been the night before because you go out on patrol the next day and then you just get a load of incoming coming at you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But, you know, thankfully, you know, they weren't that good a shot and trying to hit a boat that's doing 30 odd knots 150 meters away from you is quite difficult, you know, but yeah, so that you know, that was a little bit hair raising now and again. I've got one funny story actually. That's why so General Jackson, right? He turned up for a visit and he was chief of the defence staff back then, I believe. And he came up for this visit and we had to pick him up from the hotel and then take him back downriver, back down to the palace where Brigade HQ was. And this had been planned meticulously, right? There was an infantry regiment in Basra guarding all the bridges that we'd have to go under and all this sort of stuff. You know, lots of patrols out. We'd planned it. We'd practiced the route. Drove it pretty much every day anyway, but, you know, still had to practice it as a full patrol sort of thing. And so we're parked up at the hotel waiting for General Jackson to turn up. My OC goes, Corporal Stevens, you give the General his life jacket, make sure he puts it on properly, and he'll be on your boat. Yeah, okay, sir, no problem. Happy days. So he comes down to the jetty with his entourage, right? We've got all the boats there because all the boats were going to be full up with people going down with him with all his entourage and stuff, you know. And it's a night move, right? So it's just getting dark. And I'm giving him this life jacket. Here, sir, here's your life jacket. Here's how you put it on. I have put one of these on before, you know. And he was supposed to get in my boat. Oh, your boat's this way, sir. And he turned the opposite way. I've got my mate's boat. Okay, whatever. And My mate told me afterwards that General Jackson called me a specky twat.
No.
But so this is a night move, right? So it's meant to be secret, tactical night move down the river, no lights or anything. All you can see going down the river is General Jackson smoking his big stogie cigar,
Oh no.
big white red thing floating down the river. He's like, brilliant.
Flipping target or what?
Exactly. But yeah, no, that was quite a funny little experience. But we had lots of those little. It's quite a good fun tour. That one,
Good.
really
good.
enjoyed it. So yeah, came back from there. That'd be probably about March time, 2004. Handed over to 5 Squadron, who were doing the boat troop then.
Yeah.
What did I do after that? So that was back to 7-7. I've been selected for my full corporal. Been selected for promotion, right?
Okay.
Just
After that tour.
well, got selected on the board just before we went out.
Right.
So I knew when I got back, posting, promoted, right?
Right.
So I went to ETAT at Senelager.
What's ETAT?
ETAT was the engineer training and tactical team, or tactics team. So at that time in Germany, we had about 3 engineer units out there, 3 or 4 engineer units out there. So instead of sending people back to Gibraltar Barracks to do their combat engineer class 1s,
Yeah.
we used to run them at Senelager.
Senelager. Yeah.
We also used to do pioneer courses there as well. So for, like the infantry guys would do their little bit of engineering and that, right? So, yeah, I was there about 18 months, 2 years doing instructing there.
So you're instructing there?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Cool.
instructor, corporal instructor. Mainly doing B1s and
Okay.
a couple of pioneer courses. So that was quite good. That was quite a good one.
Do they do B2s there as well?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
But would you do refresher courses there? So I'm sure I went down there to
You
do
may
like
have done.
refresher courses or.
You may have done.
Something.
There was like a little training area right at the back of camp called Woodlands.
That's right.
And it was a bit like the train area you have at Gibraltar Barracks.
Yeah.
So you have your field and airfields bit, and you have your bridge gaps and your water supply areas and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And your minefield area fields at the front. Yeah, you probably did do training there. People did.
Just
go
wondered
there.
if we ever crossed paths. Was it a case of giving the keys to the squadrons and doing their training, or did you like go and take the equipment?
No, so it would be proper B1 courses, right, that we'd run there.
Yeah.
Sometimes there would be squadrons turn up and do a little bit of training here or there, and they would crack on by themselves.
Right.
Sort of thing.
That's what I was meaning. Like
Yeah.
when they came in to do their own training.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I did a course there. I feel like I did. I don't really remember, but I definitely did like refresher courses. And when we did exercises, we'd tie Woodlands into part of the exercise.
Yeah, that happened quite a lot.
That's definitely was on the cards.
That happened quite a lot. Sometimes we supported squadrons on exercise on the training area. I remember one. I was tasked with doing a move through part of the woods, and I had to set it up with lots of obstacles and stuff like that. But yeah, thankfully the tree people had been in and chopped down loads of trees, so there's lots of trees to use. So I had all sorts in there. They couldn't believe it when they came through. What the hell's this? But it's lots of logs everywhere, lots of like tied them up into like tripods and stuff like that. It's like full trees, like size trip wires everywhere, trip flares everywhere and all sorts. So yeah, the squadron sergeant, I knew. Went, did you set that up? Yeah. couldn't believe that when I saw that. So it's just something like, because normally you get a couple of little obstacles and stuff like that, but what I threw in there was like unbelievable, really. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe how much.
Yeah.
Do you know how long it took us to get through that, you bastard? It was quite good. But, so yeah, enjoyed that one at ETAT. And then post up to 3-2 at Hohne.
Okay. Yeah. Further north.
Which is further north of Hanover. And that camp was the old SS camp that where the SS guards lived for
Bergen-Belsen.
Yeah, Bergen-Belsen.
Yeah.
Which is the old concentration camp, which is right at the end of the camp, actually.
Yes.
That's a moving place if you've ever been
Yeah,
there.
very odd.
Strange atmosphere, isn't there?
Yeah, there's no birds.
Yeah.
Birds that, yeah.
I thought it was just me.
No.
I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah.
But, very strange atmosphere. No birds fly over it.
And then it's
just mass graves everywhere. It's just a big field, and you just see the big lumps with a little stone in the middle saying 15,000 buried here, or something like But yeah.
And then you had I'm going to make myself look silly now. I can't remember the name of her. Annie. No.
Oh, Anne Frank.
Anne Frank
died there. Yeah.
And then there's a big building with her diaries and stuff in it as well. Things like that.
Yeah.
I went to 3-2 for something as well. I think that might have been a task that I went up there as a crane operator. Again, don't remember.
No.
This is all about you, so
yeah.
I would have done my homework otherwise. But yeah, definitely been on to 3-2 camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, enjoyed that one. Went out to Canada to do temporary staff while I was there as well. Doing bat sims.
Okay, yeah.
So that was quite good.
And again, for people that aren't aware of bat sims.
So that's battlefield simulations. So we'd go out like the week before the exercise, and if nobody's ever been to Canada, where we do the training in southern Alberta, it's just prairie. It's just rolling prairie. So there's no trees there or anything. It's just rolling countryside. So we'd have places where the tanks would be doing an advance to contact, and they'd want to call in an artillery barrage or something. So we'd have to set up that artillery barrage, So we go out the week before, string up loads of PE for trying to dodge rattlesnakes.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
no.
you'd lay out all the charges and all the ring mains and stuff. The ring mains where the deck cord goes around in a big circle, and everything's attached to that. And then like the day before, you go and put all the detonators in, and then that would be fired remotely. And the furthest I managed to fire off one of my bat sims was 12.5 kilometres away.
Wow.
And these things were only meant to do 5k.
I'm guessing because it's completely flat.
Completely flat. And I was stood on top of the cab of my truck like that, and it went off. Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Very good.
They loved that. So yeah, I was up there for, I think that was about 5 months doing temporary staff.
Yeah.
We did like two exercises. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was quite good.
Sounds good. Yeah.
That was, engineers, we love blowing stuff up, don't we?
Yeah.
So but yeah. Definitely got to watch the rattlesnakes out there though.
What did you do when you came across one though?
I mean, they tend to move away.
Do they? Okay.
So they'll because these bat sim places that the locations are used time and time and time again, right? So there's holes that these rattlesnakes like to get into that caused by the explosions going off, right? But the grass overgrows them and stuff like this, so they're nice little hidey holes for the rattlesnakes to hide in. So they would tend to rattle at you, be curled up, hiss at you, and try and scare you off. But they do that for like 10 seconds, and then they just
right
go off. So as long as you don't do anything stupid and like go for them and try and kick them or whatever, they'll slither off by themselves, you know. But yeah,
Fair.
yeah, but yeah, when you go to part of the grass and you get crap. But
So you head back to Hohne, is that right?
head back to Hohne.
Yeah.
And then we go back out to Iraq again for my
Okay.
third tour
So your
of
third
Iraq.
tour of Iraq. Wow.
Third
Okay.
tour of Iraq, and that was Telex 7.
Okay. What year is this?
Oh, Christ. What was that? That was... I think that was 2006?
Yeah.
2000... Yeah, it was over the winter. So it's 2006, 2007, I think it was. Yeah, it was a winter tour.
Okay. Yeah.
Another Christmas away. But that time I was the squadron escort multiple commander.
Right.
So any road moves the squadron needed to do, or anyone in the squadron needed to do, then it was my task to plan them and to provide the security patrol for those road moves, right? So yeah, I mean that was based out of Scheibe, out of Gundolf Lines, right? But again, that every Iraq tour got a little bit hairier, you know. So like on the invasion, after the invasion happened, you know, the local people were quite happy to see you, you know, and there was quite, you know, celebrating that Saddam had gone and all this sort of stuff, and we kicked him out. And then you had the incursion come in from Iran and stuff like that, didn't you? You know, and you know, ID started appearing, you know, and that one was very much about protecting yourself from IEDs.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's really when I was really first aware of proper IEDs, you know, and using ECM and stuff like that as well, which we hadn't used on the previous couple of tours out there.
Which is electronic countermeasures.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah. So it stops if somebody wants to set off a IED using a mobile phone, it stops that signal, which is basically what ECM does, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we had, you know, I had a multiple of like 10 guys. You know, I had like 3 Snatch Land Rovers. You know, those old awful things, weren't they?
Yeah.
You know,
big and heavy. So
big and
I would
heavy,
say big.
and not
they're heavy.
not really very good against IEDs, to be honest. You know,
that's all we had at the time, wasn't it?
It was all we had. Was, to be honest, it was the best thing that we had for that job, but still not suitable or sufficient, really. But you know, we did our job. We didn't have any incidents, so you know, it was nice little tour. It was all right. It was okay. You know, nothing too.
What was your main role in that? Like, what were the main jobs that you were getting tasked with?
Oh, I was just escorting.
Right. So
people up and down.
That was it. That was
pretty much.
Right.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. So yeah, if troops had an engineering task, out anywhere, you know, they probably had a couple of low loaders filled up with sandbags and stuff like that, or other equipment, and I'd have to take them.
Okay.
Take them off everywhere. So I pretty much covered most of Southern Iraq doing that. You know, it was quite a busy little tour, that. But
but no major incidents from your.
No.
That's good.
No,
that's good.
no. So nothing like that. Also, while I was out there, I was put on the warrior gunnery course.
Oh, what, out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the plan was the OC wanted me as his warrior gunner, because an OC of a mechanised engineer squadron, his vehicle is a warrior. So obviously you need a gunner commander, driver for that. So I got put on the gunnery course. Brilliant course. Really enjoyed it. Loved the ranges with a warrior firing off the Radan cannon and that. Brilliant. Never used it after.
All right.
You know what I mean? So there we go. Never mind. Such is life. But yeah, no. Came back from that one. Spent a bit more time at 3-2. Went off to Belize.
For what exercise or
that was
adventure training?
no, that was it's an exercise / engineering task, right? So the squadron went out. Half a squadron was in the jungle doing exercise. Our troop was on St. George's Key, which is like 8 miles off the coast of Belize.
Yeah, stayed there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you remember the White House?
Yeah. I stayed in the White House.
What year did you go?
Oh, now you're asking. It was a diving trip. That's what it was for.
What was it old and tatty, or was it fairly new?
Probably fairly new. Yeah.
We rebuilt that.
When you say what do you mean by that? Did you put in aircon or something? Or
No.
You still had mozzie nets.
Oh yeah. You need mozzie nets everywhere in Belize, but no. So the White House had to be fully refurbished.
Right.
No, I mean fully refurbished.
So what was it like when you got there? Doors wouldn't open, or
I reckon if I farted in the right direction, it would have fallen over.
Okay, so then I must have gone after you. Yeah.
Right. So it was proper decrepit. Right. So, it was literally we had to strip it all off and replace literally every component of the building without demolishing it. So there was one point where we'd taken the roof off, we'd taken the side cladding off. So it was just timber frame onto these onto these concrete foundation stones, which are like 2 foot square foundation stones. But we had to replace some of those foundation stones without demolishing the building.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was literally, take it all apart, put it all back together again. Nice.
Okay.
So that was that tour, but it was I think it was there 3 months doing that.
Right. Yeah, it must have been afterwards, because just outside the White House you had like sheltered areas where you could eat.
Yeah, so you had one big building,
yeah.
Right? And then you had another building which we called the White House, which had like the adventure training stores down underneath.
Yeah.
And then there was like like rooms upstairs.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that smaller one was the one we fully rebuilt.
Yeah, and that's where we stayed.
Yeah,
like
and we stayed in that bigger building.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it must have been. It was end of 2000s, so.
Yeah, that was
2008-9. I was in Iraq.
I think that was 2000. Early 2008, we did that.
Yeah, I feel like it might have been mid 2008.
Yeah, you might have been the first ones in there.
Might have been.
Yeah,
because there was a classroom we used down at the far end. I'm sure we used a classroom, or a room that we used as a classroom.
Quite possibly.
Anyway,
possibly.
I think we sorted out.
My troop rebuilt that, and I was pretty much the foreman on that as the corporal, right?
Nice.
So I had a clerk who works there, and I had a troop commander and troop staffy there as well. But I was the on-site foreman effectively for that job. But that was good. But yeah, St. George's Key, for those that don't know, is literally about a mile long and about 200 metres wide at its widest, and literally about 2 foot above sea level.
Yeah.
But yeah, just out on the coral reef, isn't it? Just off Belize.
Yeah.
So
it's going to bug me now. Right, we're going to leave this in. If you want to share anything about it, I just want to check to see if I've got anything on my iPad that's going to remind me of the dates, because it's going to pee me right off now. I've literally got a folder here. Diving. Belize. Okay. No, I was in there 2007.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, September 2007. That's when I went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
so you spruced it up after after I went there.
Yeah.
So nice.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's been demolished since, but there you go.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But we had to rebuild it without demolishing it because apparently it was saving 30 grand or something. It was
Right.
30 grand cheaper to do it that, even though it was a lot more complicated. But still, it was a good task. We enjoyed that.
Cool.
But we go back on weekends, not every weekend, but we go back on weekends to Belize,
mainland. Yeah.
back to camp, and then just give you a break from it, really. But and you go out downtown, down to the casino, and that sort of, for a few drinks and stuff like that. But
Nice.
yeah, it was nice.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
I enjoyed that tour. That was quite a nice little tour, that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then after that, that was 2008. I was posted back to Chatham to boat school
What, as an instructor?
as an instructor.
Okay. Nice.
Really loved that. Best job in the Corps, hands down.
Really?
For a corporal. Yeah.
So what, you were there for 2 years? Or
Yeah, nearly 2 years, I think it
Okay.
was. Yeah.
teaching Chatham?
Teaching Chatham, teaching people how to operate rigid raiders and combat support boats, and then all the theory on top of that as well. So all your charts and all your rules of the road and all that sort of stuff we teach as well. But really good. Really loved that. Really loved that job.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then from I mean, on that time you're I guess you're static in the sense you're not going anywhere. You've got 2 years being stable
Yeah.
in role.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you say, you're doing course after course after course.
Yes.
So it was a good time for a bit of stabilization for you, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And who doesn't love blitzing up and down the river, throwing a combat support boat around
With no snipers around. So
with no snipers around.
that's good.
Or people trying to empty an AK-47 magazine in your general direction.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice.
No, really enjoyed that job. Really loved that job. And then after that, I was posted back to 2-2 Engineer Regiment in Perham Down.
In Tidworth.
Yeah. 5-2 Squadron this time, and that was to be deployed out to Afghan, sorry, not Iraq.
Okay.
And that was for Talisman, Operation Talisman 2, which was part of Herrick 13.
Right.
Sure, it's 13. Yeah. But Talisman was the squadron would deploy, or a trooper from the squadron would deploy to escort the supply convoys, because a lot of them were getting hit by the IEDs and stuff like that. And it was really affecting supply convoys out there. So Talisman was devised, so you'd have half of us at the front, half of us at the back. All search trained. I was flying the drone, the T-Hawk drone. I don't know if you've seen that. Really weird looking drone. So it was an inducted fan. So it was a fan inside a casing, had a camera on it, and we'd fly that up and down the route to see if we could see any ground sign of IEDs and stuff like that, to try and clear the route before the convoy. That's basically what Talisman did, just keep the convoy safe. And while we were out there, none of the convoys hit IEDs. We hit a few, but the convoys didn't.
Right.
So really successful tour out there.
So you mentioned that you had hit some?
Yeah, I hit one.
Okay. What was you driving?
So we was in a Mastiff.
Right.
But we had the mine roller on the front.
Okay. Great.
So I was the last vehicle in our Talisman packet. So I was the 10th vehicle in the convoy. And the mine roller just caught an ID on the left-hand side. Went bang. All the dirt going up in the air. Goes dark all of a sudden. Contact ID sent, straight away. The fuck sent that? Come back over the radio. But I mean, the Mastiff was, for the Talisman, was so heavily protected against IDs because, well, it's expected to hit something right? So it's very heavily protected, and with the mine roller on front as well, the only damage that happened was quite a scary experience. But the only damage that really happened was it blew one of the wheels off the mine roller.
Okay.
So I don't know if you saw that. Did you see the mine rollers out there?
No.
So we had to go and pick them up for the Americans, right? Every time we needed to use them because it was an American bit of kit. But it's just like this big trailer that you put on the front of the Mastiff, and it basically had 2 rows of wheels. So all that roadway in front of you was covered by a wheel somewhere, right? So the idea was that's a sacrificial piece of equipment. Better that gets blown up than somebody, right? So yeah, tent vehicle. We thought we was in the wheel tracks of the vehicle in front, and we just caught one, and it just went off.
Okay.
But 15 minutes later, we're back on the road again. You know, lifted the roller off, put it on the back of the low loader, carry on.
Okay.
Back to camp. But yeah, so it was scary, but thankfully, you know, the only damage was to the mine roller.
Weird that that's the 10th vehicle though.
I know, right?
Sure, that's the first. Or did you have one at the front as well?
No, we had the front vehicle had mine roller on it as well.
Right.
But we just happened to be the 10th vehicle that day in that packet. We just caught it.
Yeah. Strange.
But you did Afghan, right?
Not later on.
Oh,
so
okay.
I did it at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, because that time I was dealing with injuries and stuff. So I didn't get to use all the cool vehicles and technology, and I only really heard of was it Talisman?
Yeah,
I'd never seen it in action.
Yeah, so it was basically a troop made up of, I think it was like 4 Mastiffs. So troop commander would have a vehicle, troop staffy would have a vehicle, and you have a couple of others. They've all got mounted 50 cal machine guns on the top, which was very that particular unit was very very accurate. I mean, you could shoot a can of Coke at 1,000 meters. This thing, you know, very very accurate. But you had a Buffalo as well, which had like the arm, which could pick stuff up out of the way. You know, so you have for like 3 guys in that, I think it was. But I'd have like the UAV in the back of my vehicle. Also had like an big infrared camera that could be extended on the back of my vehicle because we was the last ones, you know. But we had a couple of those in the troop, you know. But yeah, so there's lots of very expensive shiny equipment to help prevent people hitting IDs, which, you know, thankfully we did.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So after Afghanistan,
yes,
you come back to Tidworth.
Yes,
and then this is what year is this again? This is 2000.
Right. So Afghan was like 2010, 2011. Another winter tour.
Okay.
Most of my tours seem to be over Christmas.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of Christmases away. But and then spent a bit of time in the guard room afterwards.
Is that because you're coming to the end of your career, or? Yeah,
and also I'd zoned out for promotion to sergeant. You know, because you can only, I don't know if that's changed now or not, but back then,
you had 3 looks.
You had like 3 looks for promotion to sergeant. But because of my trade as a fabricator, there's very few PIDs or placements in the Corps for sergeant. So if you're a fabricator, no matter how good you are, getting promoted to sergeant is almost impossible. You know, you've got to be very lucky. Whereas other trades, you know, you see guys go through and get promoted to sergeant. It's like, why is he getting promoted and I'm not? This sort of thing, you know. But anyway, so I'd just before we went out to Afghan, the board results had come out. I hadn't been selected. There you go. There's your lot, mate. So did Afghan, came back, got put in the guard room for a little bit, and then got my last posting down to Bovington.
Okay.
So what was that? That was probably start of 2012. And that was to Waterloo Squadron down there. For the tankies will know exactly what Waterloo Squadron is. So that's the training squadron down there. So they run all the training on the tanks and all those tank courses down there for them. And I was in the engineer troop. So I was looking after the engineers who go down there to do their armoured engineer courses, like on Titan and Trojan. Brilliant for resettlement, because I just turn up, do first parade for 8 blokes. Right, off you go down to the engineer wing then for your course. See you later. If you got any problems, give us a shout, you know. But then it's go off and do your resettlement, which is really good because I had probably 18 months left to my 22-year point. I did have an extra 2 years on top of that I could have done under something called VN, if you remember that.
Yeah.
But I'd already made up my mind. When I went to Bovington, I'm only doing my 22. So come January, because my birthday is just before Christmas, so it's always normally when I'm on Christmas leave, right? So as soon as I could, came back, New Year, did the 7 clicks to freedom, as we like to say, you know, on the old JPA.
So signing off and
so signing off,
giving a year, giving a year's notice to the army.
Giving a year's notice to the army. So yeah, 7 clicks to freedom. I remember the OC popping his head in, who was I think he was KRH, King's Royal Hussars. Oh, hello engineers, Happy New Year. How was everybody doing? Everyone have a good Christmas? Yeah, very good, thanks, sir. Just signed off. You what? What you done that for? What you done that for? Are you mad? And the reason why he was being a little bit animated like that was because they were just starting to do that. This was like phase 2 redundancy was coming through at that time. And my name was on the list. But that list wasn't released until the very next day.
Oh, no. Okay.
But it's fine because in my head, you know, I had my plan in place, you know, so could give my year's notice. That's me out at 22. That list was released the day after I signed off, but you'd have to wait 6 months to find out whether it was confirmed, whether you got redundancy or not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I was like, well, no, fuck that. Because if I wait 6 months and then get told you're not being made redundant, then I've got to put my notice in, right?
Yeah.
So in my head, I could potentially be giving you another 6 months that I don't want to give you, right? Because that extra 2 years, I wouldn't have been promoted, so I wouldn't have increased my wages. I was on top whack as a corporal, so I had no more increment levels to go for pay rise. Wouldn't have increased my pension any, so why would I? You know, why do an extra 2 years? Because it's not going to be of any benefit to me. Most benefit it's going to be to me is transitioning and getting settled in Civvy Street, right? So that was my plan, you know, and that's always, and any change to that I was not interested in whatsoever. So because I didn't have a great deal to do at Bovington during the day, gave me lots of time to think about what I want to do next, right? What am I going to do? I've been in the army for 21 years. I'm 39 years old. What the bloody hell am I going to do now, right? So I looked at, again, following my mum's advice, I looked at plumbing.
Okay.
Right. Looked at going on the tools, looked at doing like renewable energies, that sort of thing, which looked really interesting at the time. But also at the time, I was downgraded for a bad back.
Okay.
Right, medically downgraded for a bad back. So that sort of impacted on my thinking a little bit. So it was, well, I could spend all this money, all my LCAS credits, you know, doing all this training for going on the tools and whatever. What if in a couple of years' time, my back proper goes and I need to retrain again? Well, so yeah, so if my so then I was thinking, right, I need to retrain into something that will take me fully right up to retirement, right? So I'd always planned on doing a NEBOSH course or two, which is a health and safety qualification, right? So the way it worked with the LCAS credits, that's, you got like £6,000 split over 3 years, so £2,000 a year would pay for a course that had to be level 3 or above. And I booked myself with a company called BV Associates, who run all these NEBOSH courses. Of superb, run by ex-Royal Engineers. The instructor on a couple of my courses was my old Sergeant Major from Hohne.
Okay, nice.
From when we went out to Belize, it was my ex-Sergeant Major, right? So, you know, got on like a house on fire straight away on the course, which is really good, you know. But I did the fire course and I did the general course, first of all, in one package. I thought, actually, I really like this. You know, I could do this. I could see me doing this for a living, right? So then I arranged my next package, which was the construction course and the environmental course, right? So the general course and the construction course are 2 weeks long each, and the fire and environmental course are shorter courses, so they're a week long each, right? And then you have exams at the end of it, of each course, to do. So past those, okay. And then I just started trawling the recruitment sites and the job sites and all this sort of thing. I applied for so many jobs, it was unreal. Okay. Put my CV out there, done the career transition workshop thing where you do all your CV writing and all that sort of stuff as well. But put my CV out there to loads of job offers or job adverts, sorry. Literally had about 2 or 3 interviews out of probably the hundreds applications I made, you know. But one of them was this company based up in Guildford, and I was looking for sort of work placements that I could do for like a couple of weeks here or there with potential companies to sort of get some work experience on Civvy Street, right? So that would look a little bit better on my CVs and stuff like that. And yeah, this company out Guildford called me in for this interview. Interview went really well, but this was sort of April time I had this interview, and because I wasn't actually due out of the army till December, they're like, really like you, but there's too much time before you're due out of the army, so we can't take you on at the moment. Okay, fair enough. All right, happy days. And then about 2 weeks later, the MD of this company phoned me up, because I mentioned work placements during the interview, right? Oh, what's this about work placements? Would you be interested in one? Because I really need somebody to do some like site visits for me and stuff like this. I was like, yeah, okay, all right. Well, I'll see what I can ask, and went and asked, and like, yeah, that's fine, no problem at all. So this company gave me a 5-week work placement, absolutely superb, right? Learned a hell of a lot, got on really well, and I was offered a job at the end of it. Brilliant. Absolutely fell in my lap, really, So went back off to Bovington with a letter of a job offer in hand. Went up to see the CO. You happy for me to leave early, sir? So I've got a job offer. Yeah. See you later. Right. So signed me off, added my kit in. Next week I was starting civilian life with this company.
Nice.
So literally 3 months before I was due out, I started my first job as in Civilian Street, which is really good. So I had 3 months double bubble, really.
Nice.
So
a little bit of crossover there.
a little bit of crossover. Yeah.
And you didn't realise you wanted to do that area until you did the course. So
Yeah.
that was just something that.
Yeah. But because I had a dodgy back,
Yeah.
and I thought it's got to be something that I can do right up to retirement. So I knew it wasn't going to be something on the tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I did the first course, which is the fire course, I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much, because health and safety does tend to have sort of certain connotations to it, and looked down upon sometimes, not so much anymore. I mean, it's getting better. But no, I really enjoyed that. So I thought it was definitely something I could do.
Good.
Really enjoyed the work placement and, really excelled in that atmosphere. So that's why he offered me a job at the end of it.
Cool.
But,
and you still at the same company now?
No.
You've moved on since. Okay.
So I moved on since.
But same area?
Same area. So
right.
It's still health and safety, still specialising in construction. Because that first job, it was CDM, so which is construction design management. And you do all the health and safety there, and there's all those regulations involved for that, But I moved on to where I am now, the company I'm at now. Okay, the Building Safety Group. I'm there now. Been there for 8 years now. First went there as a health and safety advisor, and that was just visiting construction sites, giving advice and guidance to the member company. So you walk around, do like an inspection, which all military people are good at doing an inspection, right, of whatever kind. And then writing up the report, writing up what you identified, writing up the advice and guidance if there were issues there of how to get around those issues or to correct those issues, right? So that's the main thing that they pay us for, is the advice and the guidance. And eventually, we're quite a flat organisation, the company, but I've gone up a couple of levels since I've been with BSG. We tend to promote because we're good at our job. We promote those that are good at their job. So I was promoted to Principal Safety Advisor, spent about 2 years in that role. And last year I was promoted to Regional Manager for London Central South East.
Nice.
So basically bottom right-hand corner of UK, basically from King's Lynn down to bottom of Birmingham and down, is what I look after for the company.
Nice.
So I've got a team of 9 safety advisors at the moment in my team that I manage. So, yeah, very, very interesting. Can be quite challenging. Every day's different, which is what I like. I think most people would like that. Every day's different.
That's good. That's good.
Different challenges.
So your transition's actually been quite smooth from the military because of finding that area.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah.
Surprisingly so, really. You know, I mean, there was a little bit of there's adjustments to make when you leave the military, especially after you've done a full career of 22 years. You know, you become very ingrained in that world, and then you come out into Civvy Street, and this is small things, right? So there's different ways of communicating between the military and civilian street, right? In the military, if you're told to do something, you go off and do it. Civilian street, you might be asked why, you know, or you get some comeback, or no, I'm not doing that, you know. So you have to adapt to that a little bit, like, you know. So it's little things like that you have to adapt to and accept.
Yeah.
You know, and work on, really. So and that can be a bit of a struggle as well.
Yeah.
You know.
So you mentioned earlier about doing some NEBOSH courses, and
Yes.
and lucky enough this year they sponsored the show,
Woo!
and they asked people if they wanted to learn more about it, that they could go to their website.
Yes.
But from someone that's gone through their qualifications,
Yes.
have you got any quick advice on maybe where to go, where to look, or what to kind of aim for?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're looking to get into health and safety, so there's probably a couple of things that I would steer people towards.
Okay.
First of all, qualifications. So to be in health and safety, you need NEBOSH qualifications just to get you started. And the reason I did 4 was to put myself a little bit head and shoulders above other people that are looking for jobs, because a lot of health and safety professionals out there may have 1 or 2 NEBOSH qualifications, but holding 4, you know, is a bit of a bonus on the CV sort of thing, right? So it makes you more attractive when people are doing the CV sift. But if you're really interested in health and safety, look at the NEBOSH qualifications. So their basic qualification that everyone should have if you're going into health and safety is the general certificate, which covers Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, and the management of health and safety systems, that sort of thing. You know, fire is a bit more specialist. You know, that's looking at the fire regulations and how to manage that. Environmental speaks for itself, so that's for environmental issues. Construction, that's a big course, but that's special. That's so you can specialise in looking at construction sites. And effectively, it's like the second week of the general course. It's more about managing health and safety systems in the construction sector. So you'll learn lots of the little areas that you need to be able to look at and manage and advise on for construction, right? And there's a lot in construction. You know, we've both, you know, in our time done a bit of construction here and there in the Corps, you know. So, you know, you've got your work in the height, you know, you've got things being lifted up with cranes, and you're a crane op, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you've got all that planning and management that you have to do. You've got risk assessments that you have to be able to advise and guide on. There's certain regulations that you need to be aware of as well, you know, things like asbestos, and the list is endless. It really is. You know, there's a lot there.
But you've enjoyed doing those courses.
Yes.
You're now in that career, and
absolutely
sounds like you're doing well. So
yeah, absolutely. The next place I would steer people towards, if they're looking for a career in health and safety, is to have a look at IOSH. That's IOSH. So that's the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, which is the professional chartered membership for health and safety professionals.
Okay.
Right. So they usually hold branch meetings monthly. They do CPD updates and stuff like that, and there's CPD training on their website and stuff like that. You know, so that really helps you to develop as a health and safety professional as you're moving forwards. But it's also good for networking and stuff like that. You know.
Okay. Cool.
Which is, you know, unfortunately, you know, in this world, there's a lot of it's who you know, not what you know, gets you ahead, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Networking is king when you're transitioning. I think.
Okay.
You know, I've definitely, and using IOS, especially for health and safety professionals, is very good for networking.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I think that does bring us up to date with
There we
your career and your time before and after, which is
Yes.
just as important.
Yeah.
Was there anything that we didn't get to cover?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So, Royal Engineers Association.
Okay, for the Royal Engineer people out there.
Yeah, for the Royal. Well, I mean, every corps in the army, and I think even infantry units, have their own associations that their veterans can be a part of. Right?
Yeah.
And they're all aimed at supporting veterans after they've transitioned out into civilian life. So, I decided to join the Royal Engineers Association as I was leaving, just as a insurance policy, really, as a backstop, just in case, you know, got into difficult times or whatever. But yeah, so I joined a local branch down at Portsmouth, went down there. Next youngest person was 81, right? So there is the, you know, especially the survey guys think all the associations are, you know, World War II vets in a blazer and tie in some dusty old pub somewhere, swinging a lantern, right? So, yeah, no, I went along there and instantly they gave me the standard. Oh, you're young and fit. You can be the standard bearer. We also need a treasurer as well, so you can have that job as well. Oh, fine out loud, so I'm not getting away from this, am I? So, but sadly, I mean, it was difficult for them to recruit members. They didn't actually do any recruiting, to be honest, you know. But so sadly, that branch closed down. Right. A few months after, I decided, because the Portsmouth branch had closed down, there was a branch at Longmoor that closed down, and the branch at Gosport had like 2 members left who met on a Tuesday lunchtime in a pub, so nobody else could go along. Well, there's a need there, isn't there, for a new branch? So I just put out on Facebook, across all the engineer groups, anybody living down in South Hampshire fancy setting up a new branch? And I was quite surprised at the response that I got, right? And it was so good, I ended up being able to apply to the association to set up a new branch, which is called the Solent and District branch. We meet down in Fareham. Currently, we've got about 100 members on the books.
Nice.
Which is quite good. And we've even got some serving soldiers come along as well, which is really good. We're all age range, you know, probably 35 plus, you know. But most of us are sort of 40 to 60 age bracket, I would say. You know, so for the association, that's quite a young branch. So quite an active branch. So we do quite a lot of things. So we normally have like a sailing weekend in the summer. We'll have a summer barbecue somewhere, probably up on one of the local country estates or something like that, you know, or country park, sorry. A couple of years back, we did a charity tandem skydive, in aid of sapper support, which we raised £1,300 for.
Nice.
Which was really good. That started off as a drunken dare, as all these things do, right? So we was up at the so the association has like national events throughout the year. So they'll have one at Gibraltar Barracks called the Minley Weekend, and we was chatting in the bar on a Saturday night to one of the sergeants serving at Gibraltar Barracks, who was running the Royal Engineers skydiving team, right? So the idea sprung from there, really. And it started off as a bit of a joke. We're going to throw one of the old boys out of an airplane. He was like, yeah, all right then, whatever. Yeah, okay. He didn't. But, but we got the ball rolling, and sort of just after COVID, we thought it'd be quite good to do something. And 3 of us did the jump. it was a really good day. I've got even got a little video somewhere that the Royal Engineers skydiving team banged together for us, and yeah, no, it was a really good day.
Nice.
But we tried to do things, tried to be active, tried to get the younger members in. Like I say, the association's got this air of it's the old boys in blazers and boring. I'm not going to do that. But it's open for everybody, right? So as soon as you join the army, you're asked to pay into the day's pay scheme, which is what funds your association benevolent funds, right? So the association is all there to service their benevolent funds. So you're already a paid up member, right? All you have to do is let you go and apply to be a member of your local branch, right? And get along and make it what you want to make it, is what I say. You know, don't let it be the old boys in suits and a tie on a Tuesday lunchtime meeting for a pie and a pint in some pub that you can't get to because you're busy working. You know, get along to your branch and make the changes, is what I say. You know, let's get people involved in the associations and make it what you want to make it, because HQ run the benevolent fund, but the branches can do whatever they want.
Okay.
You know, there's no set rules on what the branches can and cannot do for their meetings or for their events. You know, so it's I would definitely say get along to your local branches and make it what you want it to be.
Like you say, you're already members if you've paid into the day's pay scheme.
Exactly.
For your cap badge. So
yeah.
So
no,
that's pretty
exactly.
Good. It's pretty good.
Exactly.
Cool.
But there we go. But yeah, get out there and join the REA.
Yeah.
I'll get you signed up after this. Yeah.
We'll see. Fantastic. So it has brought us to the point in the podcast.
Yes.
Where we can hopefully get some advice from yourself for others.
Okay.
So the first bit of advice would be for people that are thinking of joining the military, and it doesn't have to be specifically the army or the Royal Engineers, but just generally the military of their country. Have you got any advice for those people that are thinking of joining?
I would definitely say, if you're thinking of joining, look at it. Look at what you want to do. Look at what options you've got there when you join up, and make sure you do something that you want to do. I would definitely encourage people to join the military, you know, because the opportunities you get once you're in the military are second to none, right? So I've been to places around the world I probably wouldn't, if I was on Civvy Street, I would never get to, right? I don't just mean Iraq and Afghan and, you know, but Canada, Kenya, Belize, you know, most of Europe, you know, probably wouldn't have got to see some of these places if I hadn't joined the military, right? So I'd say it's definitely well worth joining the military, but look at what you want to do. And I would also say, you need to start preparing for Civvy Street as soon as you join. So, or before you join. So you want to be looking at jobs that you might be able to use afterwards. You know, so hence why my mum was so keen on me being a plumber, right? Because I could have used it afterwards. You know, even though I've not got down that route, but the military gives you so many skills and gives you so much training and abilities. It's unbelievable. So definitely worth doing.
Nice. Good bit of advice there for those thinking of joining. And the other bit I would like from you is you've given some advice already, but some advice for veterans. So you've already mentioned about joining their local association for their cap badge.
Yes.
You mentioned about potentially looking at utilising their enhanced learning credits, that kind of stuff, if they are British.
Yes.
But have you got any generic veteran advice for maybe those that have just joined, i.e. just become a veteran, or maybe have been out for a while?
So, networking. So, especially when you're transitioning, it's you need to get out there and meet people and get your face in front of people, right? Because you never know, somebody might be able to, I know somebody that's got a job that you'd be perfect for, sort of thing, you know, and that comes from networking, right? So I think even though I applied for like 100+ jobs to job adverts, and I got 3 interviews out of all of those, I was very lucky. One, eventually it gave me a work placement, and then on the back of that gave me a job. So I was very, very fortunate in that regard. But you definitely need to be getting out there, networking, meeting people, speaking with people in the sectors that you want to be looking to work in, right? No matter what it is, whether that's health and safety, whether that's security, whether that's trades or whatever. But it's definitely networking is king.
Networking. Nice. That's good advice. No one's ever said that before.
Really?
So that's the first time. That's good. Huh?
Oh, there you go.
But it's true. It is absolutely true. So it's great advice there. Brilliant. So Mark, again, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. How was it for you coming on?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really enjoyed
sharing
it.
your time.
Swinging the lantern.
Swinging the lantern.
Pull up
like
the sandbags.
Yeah.
Swing the lantern. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Good. So thank you again for sharing everything that you've shared from before, during, and after service, and also giving up some of your time. We don't have infinite amount of it, and you gave me some of your Saturday to let me set up in your home and get a recording done for your episode. So thank you very much for doing that.
No, thank you very much.
No worries. And lastly, I say this to all my guests: thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service as well, because you served as well, didn't you? So
I did.
No, thank you for your service too.
No problem at all.
We need to say more of that, I think, especially in UK.
Yeah.
I know the Americans say it a lot and other countries say it a lot, but I think we really need to look after our veterans and pay respect to the service that they've provided.
Exactly. And that's why I stole it from the Americans. And that's why I've done it on every episode. So yeah, you're the 39th episode. And
there you go.
I've said that to 38 guests because one episode was mine.
There you go.
And I will continue to do that. And some Brits find it uncomfortable. But hey ho.
I think that's just because it's just the British nature, I think.
It is.
To be honest.
It is.
But yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, Mark.
No, thank you very much.
No worries.
Cheers.
This has been Military Veterans Podcast. Out.